Dune Awakening has a massive patch that's coming out on August 12th, and there is a ton of changes that could possibly be making their way into the game. They are going to be running a bit of a public test server in order to test these changes, obviously, and today I'm going to break down the entirety of these patch notes, if you will, of possible changes which could be working their way into the game. This is actually a massive list, so let's just go ahead and dive right on into it here. Let's get started here with some of the highlights, and then we'll jump into the nitty-gritty of this whole August 12th update that's coming out. For example, it's now going to be possible to place pillars in between walls. There's a new sand bike variant and a new set of desert mechanic decorations that's going to be available. They're now making it to where if you collide with the sandworm's body during any of its animations, it's now going to result in death or vehicle destruction. You're now going to be able to search for items by name in the auction house, and the categories are going to be reorganized to make it all a little bit more intuitive. And then maybe the biggest part of this update coming out, I might be a little bit biased here, but they are going to be adding the deposit all blood and extract all water buttons to the blood purifiers, as well as the water cisterns. Eventually, once you have death stills running, this isn't a problem. But I'm telling you, my mouse is worse for wear now with all of the clicking that I had to do in order to deposit all of this water into my cisterns. It's been absolutely wild, and I'm glad to see something like this finally making it into the game. But there is a whole lot more that is coming, so let's go ahead and start diving into all of this here. Starting off with technical and stability, they have made it to where the unstuck button mechanic has been improved. There now should be fewer cases when the unstuck button is going to fail to work. When it comes to resources and building and crafting, they have improved the distribution on some of the Jabal content blocks to prevent very large primrose fields from spawning. They've also made it to where the Solido replicator is going to encode placeables and decorations, allowing you to copy your fully functional base and all of the style that you put into that base. So that's actually really good to hear for all of the builders out there. But on top of that, they've also added 3 new modules to the base management menu. This is going to show information about the base's power supply, water storage, and inventory capacity. They've also made it to where it is now possible to place pillars in between walls, and pentashield surfaces can now sustain damage, just like the corners of the pentashield. So there's no longer going to be these cheesy, unrateable pentashield bases you see out in the deep desert, at least as of August 12th. When it comes to equipable items that you take back from a contract delivery, those are going to now default enter your backpack instead of immediately being equipped. We also have the static compactor power consumption now scaling more linearly per tier, and they've increased the static compactor threat generation, which might make those compact compactors just a little bit more viable, or it might make them worse. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Moving on into the economy, you can now search for items by name while you're in the auction house. Also, the auction house categories have been reorganized to make browsing for items a little bit more convenient and intuitive. They've also increased the amount of scrap metal awarded when cutting apart crashed ornithopters by right around 20%. They've also changed the name of the Mala clothing chest to the Mala tunic to differentiate it from the Mala clothing chest item that has a Frem kit attached to it. They've also changed the crafting recipe of the Buggy Cutter Ray MK3 to use 10 ray amplifiers instead of 23 Holtzman actuators. On top of that, they updated the way that items are categorized in the exchange. They've improved interactions with other players when they are moving. They've redistributed flower sand and spice fields in the Haga Basin to allow the worm to reach them. They've added Solari to the liquids held inside of containers. So now when you sell a container to a vendor that contains any amount of liquid, you get extra Solari in return. They've also increased the range at which corpses can be looted to make the experience just a little bit smoother. They've removed Solari from the Plastanium tier deep desert loot pools, and then they've increased the volume of rockets and missiles from 0.05 up to 0.2. So now a full stack of either is going to have a volume of 50. This is going to definitely help with the rocket spam. On top of that, they've also increased the crafting cost of rockets from 1 duraluminum ingot and 10 fuel cells up to 4 duraluminum ingots and 20 fuel cells. They've updated the icons for small and medium vehicle fuel cells so they're more distinct from the large vehicle fuel cells. And then they say in order to make some of the items more attractive to buy from vendors, several of them have had their prices adjusted. There's a big fat list of price changes here. Some of them are pretty substantial. For example, rockets having their price adjusted from 4,000 all the way down to 200 Solari. Spiced fuel cells have been adjusted from 1,500 to 200 Solari. Go ahead and pause the video and take a look at this list here for the sake of time. We're not going to read through this entire thing, but there are some pretty substantial changes here. Let me know what has you most interested down in the comments. They've also added in the show stats functionality on schematics. It's now going to be available on schematic items that are in your inventory. You don't have to research the item first. You're going to be able to look at what its stats are. They've corrected that the Tarl Cutter Ray MK5 could drop from the aluminum tier loot locations, and that the Sandflies Carver could drop from the duraluminum tier locations. These two uniques have now been swapped. Schematics can now display the stats of output items while in the inventory or when viewed on a vendor. I'm pretty sure we just read through that, whatever. A new sand bike variant is available for purchase at the vehicle vendor, and a new set of desert mechanic decorations is going to be available for purchase from the structure vendor. When it comes to combat, they have updated the melee animation to have the hand in the right pose. Logging off in a social hub is now instant. They've increased the penalty to headshot damage from center of mass at negative 25%, up from negative 10% at all levels of the technique. They've removed the body damage penalty from the marksman technique, and they've also updated the info card for the center of mass to better list what types of damage it is going to modify. There is a new down but not out sword execution animation. They've added a bit of polish on the heavy attack dagger animations, and they've added in a new stagger dash tutorial that will trigger if you have been in stagger for a combined 2 minutes in one play session without dashing out of it. They've reduced the intensity of the suspensor belt VFX trails when you're moving at high speeds. They've polished the dagger sprint attack animation, and then they say that while you are in stamina regeneration block, both lower left and middle screen stamina icons will show as block. Then also while you are in stamina regeneration delay, the time remaining on the delay as a drain on the stamina icons are going to show, similar to the buff icons. They've also improved the responsiveness of NPCs emerging from behind entry points in the wave encounters. They've made it to where rushers with daggers should occasionally use the lunge attack variant when their target is trying to stay away from them. They've also made it to where the PvP respawn token timer will now only count down when the player is alive, and then the PvP respawn timer will now work inside of the Haga Basin. They've also added in a new visual indicator to show when your stamina regeneration is blocked. I told you guys that there's a lot here. We're only about halfway through. I'm going to start burning through this list even faster than we already have. Starting off, colliding ornithopters are now going to get knocked back in order to separate them. This is going to mitigate the griefing done to the carrier ornithopters by swarming them with the multiple ornithopters. Also, the Mohandi's sandbike engine is going to now produce more heat. We've also temporarily removed the front utility module slot from the assault ornithopter, and then some balance changes here. They've halved the sandbike scanner deterioration rate, halved the light ornithopter scanner deterioration, halved the light ornithopter wing deterioration rate. They've reduced the medium ornithopter wings deterioration by 30%. They've increased the carrier ornithopter dragonfly speed by 20%. And then they've halved the carrier ornithopter generator heat buildup speed. On top of that, they've also increased the overall boost power by 10%. And they've slightly increased boost speed while in vulture mode for the carrier ornithopters. And then the generator and PSU tier upgrades have now had a more noticeable effect on the heat stats. And then they've made it to where the assault and carrier ornithopters have had their booster thrusters updated, now allowing their boost to increase their maximum vulture speed. The carrier ornithopters increased thruster boosts now also has the strategic option to cut its losses by dropping its harnessed cargo, go into vulture mode, and attempt to flee using boosts. They've added a bit of some slight polish to the vehicle cameras, making it less likely to clip through the terrain, and they've also improved the logic of how vehicles are positioned after travel to avoid their overlapping with one another on arrival. Finally, they've increased the time before abandoned vehicles are going to attract the sandworm. They've also made some changes to the deep desert as well as the Landsrad. They've added additional lands to fight over and claim for your bases, with more resources being generated there. The Landsrad houses may now require Solari to be delivered. Sandworms in the deep desert now have a 50% chance to use the shorter breach version of their animation. And then finally, the Communinet warnings that appear before the Coriolis storm buildup now more clearly convey that this is the storm's buildup that is going to happen and not the apex of the storm where the deep desert gets wiped. And then from here, you can see that we jump into a bunch of bug fixes, small, tiny little fixes that are coming into the game. This is like a 3-page list here. And again, for the sake of time inside of this video, I'm not going to break down each and every single one of these bug fixes, but there are some really good things inside of this. Definitely worth taking a look at. I'll have a link to this entire page down in the description. For example, here, a massive combat fix coming in is that they've fixed an issue that is causing Crippling Strike to cost twice as much stamina as it should. Crippling Strike is a ability that I've been running, and I'm telling you, it's been draining my stamina way more than it actually should. It's nice to see that it actually indeed was draining my stamina faster than it should, and it's an issue that has been or will be addressed. Like I said, as you can see, this list just goes on and on and on. We would be here for about 45 minutes if I were to go line by line and kind of lay out exactly all of what's getting changed. But there is a lot. Let me know down in the comments what you guys are most excited to see getting changed or coming into the game, or whatever balance you saw inside of this patch notes. It's really good to see that this is going to be a very beefy update, probably their biggest one yet. Let me know down in the comments if you want me to make a separate video where we do go line by line by line by line and break down each of these bug fixes, these tiny little fixes that they're putting into the game. But that's about it when it comes to the really big changes that are planned to be coming out inside of this August 12th update. Me in particular, it's nice to see that they're making it to where the carrier ornithopter can no longer be bumped to the ground. And the deposit all water button is absolutely huge. Let me know down in the comments what you guys are most excited to see come in, or what you guys want to see come in or be changed inside of Dune Awakening. But that's all the information that I wanted to break down inside of this video. If you made it this far, made it down below so I can give you an extra shout out. But other than that, I hope you guys all have an amazing day. I'm out.